Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome in. It is the On Texas Football Tuesday night live stream brought to you by and powered by Texas Electricity Ratings. It's a huge show, and we want to hear from you on the comment side for sure. It is some football we'll get to. A 2026 commitment has come in. There's a rules change for college athletics as far as coaching staffs and who can be on the field coaching and not, which we will dive into for sure. But obviously, the major breaking news story is not football related. It's baseball, as the Texas Longhorns have hired Jim Schlossnagle away from Texas A&M inside 24 hours from the Aggies participating in their biggest sporting event in 85 years. Not only they lose the game 6-5 and Tennessee are your national champions, Texas has now taken their head coach, and Chris Del Conte, the Longhorn athletic director, has used a relationship he built with Jim Schlossnagle over a decade in Fort Worth when they were together in TCU, and plucked him out of College Station to lead the Longhorns baseball program into the Southeastern Conference. Guys, I mean, what can you say about that? I mean, Aggies are a win away, 7 outs away on Sunday from winning the national championship. And here we are 2 days later, a little over 2 days later, and they're now reeling and melting down in College Station because their head coach is now coaching the Longhorns.
I can't help but laugh. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry to do it, man. I've just been, the last 2 hours of my life, I've been getting sent texts from friends everywhere with different memes and videos. And look, I would say this to everyone out there. I mean, Chris Del Conte just went all in. I mean, just lopped the, I don't know if this is the horse's head in the bed in Godfather or what, but he essentially just said, "No, let's do it this way." And I do think that Trev Alberts, the athletic director at Texas A&M, probably just got a wake up call. And I don't think that A&M fans are going to be really happy about it, based on some things I've heard. I mentioned this in the live stream that we did right when it happened. CJ and Blake were leading that. One of the things that I go back to is that some support personnel back when I think Alberts laid some guys off in either February or March, some of those were done without some of the coaches' knowledge on the staff. And I recall a quote from Trev Alberts that talks about college sports doesn't have a revenue problem. It has a spending problem. Well, you can't be penny wise and pound foolish. That's what my parents told me. And that's what it sounds like maybe Trev Alberts was. And when you do that, I'm here to tell you, you lose the faith of your coaches. What are we doing this for? We need more help, not less. And, I know that plus his relationship with Chris Del Conte. He was the head coach at TCU. Del Conte was the AD at TCU. Certainly played a role in this. But I have to realize, or I have to be thinking to myself, if I'm an Aggie fan today, I'm just emotionally defeated. I just lost the national championship game 6-5, right? I mean, it was a nip and tuck game where your team's coming back. Your coach, leaves less than 24 hours later. I mean, he gets on a plane and then goes. That's just, I'll tell you what, the Aggies are, if they're not fit to be tied now, I don't know what they are. CJ, you may have more on it than me, but I tell you what, it's just crazy.
We knew coming into, I guess 5 days from now, Bobby, with Texas joining the SEC officially, Aggies weren't going to be very happy about that, right? That was their calling card. For years, Texas fans made the jokes of the SEC patch being the first thing that you think of whenever you talk about Texas A&M since it's joined the conference. That was its big moment, right? In terms of, just kind of their leg up over Texas for the last decade plus. Well, that's gone. And Texas, they got back to where they wanted to be football-wise, but over the last couple of seasons, it had been baseball that A&M was leaning into with Jim Schlossnagle at the helm. 2 College World Series appearances in 3 years. This year was probably the best team that they've ever had in their, program history. Well, he's gone now. So in, the matter of almost a week, Texas A&M went from hoisting what would have been their first national title in the Big Three in 85 years, to losing the head of their program in Jim Schlossnagle, to then, oh shoot, now we got to watch Texas and Pitbull celebrate joining the SEC. Like, they can't catch a break this last week of June, and it's all coming, 100 miles an hour ahead of them. So what a week for Texas baseball. I mean, we've certainly talked about it in the sense of what this means on the diamond at Dish Falk Field. Of course, the relationship, Bobby, you mentioned that previously as well, with Chris Del Conte and Jim Schlossnagle and them working together. I want to run through it a little bit. He spent 18 seasons at TCU. He made it to 5 College World Series appearances at TCU, 4 straight from 2013 to 2017. Pretty unheard of at a school like TCU, at a program that really had to earn its stripes once it joined the Big 12. That's pretty impressive. You're able to go out and you're recruiting. At the time, the portal wasn't the portal, obviously, but you do still have to battle in recruits and find ways to get new talent. He goes out to Illinois and grabs the Gatorade National Player of the Year in the sport of baseball to come to TCU, of all places. This guy can recruit and he can develop. And we saw it this past season out of the portal as well. Jim Schlossnagle can certainly find guys out of the transfer portal, and he did so with Braden Montgomery coming over from Stanford, one of the top players in all of the country. He's now a Texas Longhorn. He's the face of the program moving forward, and Texas fans should be over the moon about what's to come at Dish Falk Field for the foreseeable future.
It's well said, and I think everything. And I first started hearing word about CDC making Jim Schlossnagle the target middle of the season when they had some really bad losses, and David Pierce had made himself the pitching coach, and that was kind of the last straw. When that didn't go well, he was kind of hanging himself there. But I think Texas fans, there's two sides to this. There's Chris Del Conte, who has shown over and over again now, winning the Directors Cup this year, all the success. And David Pierce's baseball program just stuck out like a sore thumb, right? I mean, it was just every other program was competing for championships, winning Big 12s, national championships. Football was playing for it. Baseball, which is as important a sport of Texas as you're going to find as far as generational importance, was lagging in a big way on their way to the SEC. And this is why, if you're a Texas fan, you love Chris Del Conte, because he decided who his number one target was going to be and did not blink. You remember, Bobby, back in the day when DeLoss Dodd said, we don't keep up with the Joneses. We are the Joneses. CDC, that's his mindset. We don't because some would say, well, no, you don't go mess with your rival there. He did it with Chris Beard at Texas Tech. He did it with the Texas A&M, right after, they're playing for the national championship. That's an athletic director who will identify his top target and not be told no, and not be told I'm not getting my guy. And he's done that with all the coaching hires he's made. And the Pierce thing, letting Pierce twist and dangle for 3.5 weeks since June 2nd, we all knew he was going to get let go, but he had to wait for the Schlossnagle situation and the Aggies season to end to make the push. And he, much like he did with Tom Herman ahead of Steve Sarkisian, let Herman coach the bowl game. They won the bowl game, but then they come in on a weekend and within 24 hours, Herman's out, Sark is in. We've seen him do that over and over again now. He is the AD you want for this day and time. He's going to identify the top talent and go get it. And I would also say that for Schloss. I mean, his history is not only being a great baseball coach and baseball mind, he also hires great people and great coaches. He hired Tony Vitello at TCU. He was a top assistant for him for several years. The pitching coach he's going to bring with him, reportedly, that I've been told, Matt Weiner, has done an incredible job with the pitching staff at Texas A&M. I've also been told that Troy Tulowitzki is going to remain on the staff and stay at Texas and be a part of this new Jim Schlossnagle staff. So it's all aces for Texas, and it's another win for Chris Del Conte. The thing you mentioned, Bobby, that I think is of note, big picture moving forward for the Aggies, who are going to be in a meltdown, you better get your athletic director situation under control, because there's a problem. It's not just Schloss. It's across the board. He has not made an effort to reach out to his coaches, meet his coaches, connect with his coaches. And as you said, Bobby, to your report that they're cutting staff without telling the coaches. We've seen that happen here. That is a recipe for a problem in a big way. And I noted last night, if you were watching the national title game, you saw a box full of Tennessee coaches. You saw Rick Barnes and Josh Heupel and Peyton Manning. They were all there. Mike Elko wasn't there. There were no other coaches there for Texas A&M. Trev Alberts was there. He wasn't visible. He wasn't out in front of this whole thing. He allowed this to happen. And as you said, I think it's more than a wake-up call for Trev at Texas A&M. there are going to be some people that never thought this would happen that have to, yes, you give credit to Chris Del Conte, but they have to look at who's running their athletic department right now. He's only been there for 4 or 5 months. They got to get that under control, because I've been told it's not just that coach that's concerned, and now he's gone. So you better button it up if you're Trev Alberts down at Texas A&M, because that's as big a part of this as what Chris Del Conte pulled off, in my opinion.
Good stuff, Aaron. It's interesting that you're hearing about all those coaches. I think there's already some recruits that are changing their minds. I think there's some football recruits, or at least one football recruit that this might impact, and that's Jonah Williams out of Galveston Ball. One of the reasons he liked A&M was because of Jim Schlossnagle. So remember that young man. He's actually in Atlanta today playing in a baseball tournament, but he's one of the nation's top overall prospects, plays safety, could be a linebacker, edge, whatever you want him to be, but also a high round draft pick in baseball. Supposedly his brother was a baseball draft pick. So look out for that. Jerry talked with Jonah Williams earlier today. So those things can have an impact. Matt, you've got a tweet. One of the best players we've seen in the last 25 years at the University of Texas, without question, is Houston Street. End up long-term, Major League Baseball player, closer on a national championship team for the Longhorns. He says, how mad are these two Aggie fans right now? They're the ones that got kicked out of the stadium for apparently attacking a Florida coach about someone's death. So horrible stuff there. But think about these guys. How mad are they if they're mad at something else and trying to get on everybody else? But Houston Street chiming off on it. I saw Quandre Diggs posting about how it feels to be a Longhorn today. It's look. I'm not into this kicking someone else down to build yourself up. But to CJ's point, 5 World Series appearances at TCU in 18 years is no joke. I saw Reed Ryan, by the way. Y'all know Reed.
Very well.
His dad, Nolan. You've got his dad's jersey in the background there. Aaron, he wished Schlossnagle all the best yesterday. So Reed's a former Longhorn at one point before he went to TCU as well. And so I think that people that know him and have been around with him have seen success, and I think he's going to bring success back to the Longhorn Diamond as well. A lot of good news there, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I would say this to your part, CJ, about his success. I mean, there was not a better candidate in the country as far as the success, the ability to build a program, identify talent, identify coaches, and then know Texas, right? Tony Vitello's 9 years younger, but he's at Tennessee. I mean, no one knows the network of Texas and the select baseball and the AAU and how this all plays out. Guys you want to recruit, the coaches. He's been dealing with it since 20 years at TCU, now several at A&M. No one has better Texas ties, and this is why I'll give credit to CDC, just like he did with Chris Beard. It's not about punching, and I don't think in his mind, and maybe there's some benefit to knocking your rival, but it was about identifying the best coach for your program that was going to fit right and come in and win and elevate the program. Because for 8 years, David Pierce showed some good. Wasn't a bad. I mean, everybody enjoyed covering him, but it went sour. And, as I always say, good's the enemy of great. I mean, and if you're going to compete in the SEC, that conference has won 5 straight national championships with 5 different programs. The final 4 teams standing in Omaha were SEC teams. You got to be great to compete in that conference in baseball. And that's what Jim Schlossnagle has shown in the state of Texas at 2 different programs, that he can build a great program. So again, flowers to CDC for identifying that, not worrying about the appearances of it, and just going and targeting his coach and going and getting him.
Aaron, I want to add to that. First off, Blake made this point earlier on the live stream that we had right before this, and credit again to Blake for being on top of all of this movement. Who would have thought a few weeks ago this is where we would be? But Blake's been all over this one from start to finish, whether it be David Pierce, possible candidates to replace. But on top of being around 2 very successful college baseball programs in the state of Texas, he's also now had experience in the SEC. He understands what that schedule will look like on a week-to-week basis when you consider just how dominant that conference has become in the world of college baseball, right? It was an all SEC final. It was Jim Schlossnagle's Texas A&M squad against Tony Vitello's Tennessee. Of course, Florida Gators were also in the mix. And you start looking down the list, right? Ole Miss, Mississippi State, they've both been successful in the past. Vanderbilt for the last decade, I know that they're a little bit down right now, but for the past decade, they've been one of the gold standards when it comes to building a baseball program. So for him to have understood what it's like as Texas enters the conference and can kind of shine a light for a program that's yet to see what it's like to go through an entire SEC slate, I think that's huge. Again, going into it year one with Schlossnagle at the helm, I'm excited to see who he brings in from the portal. We've heard some names. We'll let those names make their decisions for themselves. We did pop and got the green light for a pin pitcher from the Ivy League. That's Eli Trop, making his way over to the University of Texas to follow Jim Schlossnagle. He is the first one in the fold for the Texas baseball program. But hey, there's plenty of more coming, and Blake and I are continuing to hear many more names, as is Bobby and Jerry behind the scenes as well. Should be pretty exciting couple of weeks for the Texas Longhorns.
Here we go. Colton with a super chat. Please get Schloss to wear number 12 next season. Oh, man. That would be another kick to the nuts. Why do you think guys Texas dropped the news on Pierce yesterday? And how do you feel about his comments that he wasn't taking another job? That's from Daniel. Can I say one thing on that? And I want y'all guys' opinion. I'm of the opinion, I've been told from someone I trust implicitly at UT, that UT didn't drop that information. Kirk Bowles broke that story yesterday morning. Kirk Bowles, who's been, if you don't live in Austin, he's written for the Austin American-Statesman for 50 years. He's taken a job at the Houston Chronicle. I don't believe UT put that story out. I believe UT had to react to that story once it was out. I've been told that came from the David Pierce side, that there was a meeting over the weekend between CDC and David Pierce, because obviously if CDC was making Schloss the target, they're playing in the World Series. And if they had won Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, CDC's got to be ready to go. And you have to have that final meeting with David Pierce, which they did. I believe that's when Kirk got the story from, I don't know if it was directly from David Pierce, but someone in that camp. And called CDC and looked and said, I've got the story. We're going with it. I need a comment, or whatever it became. And that was the story. I think it's been, and I will eat my words if I'm wrong on this, but UT did not put out a statement on that. That was reported in the Houston Chronicle, and it came from Kirk. And I believe it came from the David Pierce side. I don't think UT wanted that story out yesterday. I really don't. That's my opinion. I think they wanted to wait until this morning to put that out and lead with it. And then, of course, Coach Schloss wouldn't have had to answer that question last night after the game. And you understand him being upset about that, because last night needed to be about his team and his season and his guys and his locker room, even though what happened. But I keep hearing people say that UT put out a statement. They did not. They responded to a news story from the Houston Chronicle, and I think it came from the other side. So I think that needs to be clarified. I would imagine whenever the press conference happens with CDC introducing Schloss and the staff, they will address that. But that's my opinion on that situation.
I think that's a tremendous explanation. I really do, because Texas did not put anything out. It reacted to the news, and that's how they do it.
Yep.
And so that's a tremendous explanation, Aaron, in my opinion. This one from Chris Bennett. CDC is the man. Keep up the great work, guys. CDC is indeed, he's doing something else. This one from Sean. I don't know who's taking more L's right now, A&M or Drake. I'm not the pop culture guy these days, so I don't know how many L's Drake has taken, but A&M's taken 3 in the last 48 hours that haven't been real pretty. Thunderpup, do you think A&M tried to match UT's offer but couldn't because of previous buyout of Jimbo's contract? Y'all have any thoughts on that one? I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Go ahead, CJ. I just don't think money's in it. I think the money was going to be equal wherever. We've heard the report of a 10-year, $30 million deal for Schloss here, which, again, if you're CDC, you're hoping Schloss is here 20 years like Augie was, right? Coach in Texas. But a 10-year deal. I don't think it was money. I think the NIL money is the same. I think this is about a relationship with an AD that you know very well and trust versus one you don't know very well and aren't sure of. And I think it's about living in Austin, Texas, and not living in College Station. I think to me, that's the end of the day. Jim Schlossnagle, the opportunity. Where do I want to be the next 20 years of my life? College Station or there. I think money even, money equal. I think it's Austin versus College Station. And I've also know this about Schloss, CJ. He says this openly. He says it all the time. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I coach baseball. That's what I do. That's all I do. It's very similar to Augie back in the day. Augie, all he did was coach baseball, and he'd cook and drink wine and hang out at AVs. Schloss is kind of that kind of guy. He doesn't do. And if you're at A&M, you got to do those things, right? You got to go fishing with the boosters and hunting with the boosters and those kind of things. I'm not saying that turned him off. I'm just saying, where do I want to be? Where am I going to be comfortable? And we heard him say last night in that comment that he had to answer, I left my family to come here, right? He left his wife back in Fort Worth. They're separated or whatever it is. Maybe moving to Austin, that's their lives. Maybe there's a chance to live there. I don't know. I think it was a choice that he made. I think the money was pretty even across the board because A&M can match Texas with money.
Yeah, I have to imagine with the optics that we're looking at it now, and specifically from the national perspective, where A&M again was only several outs away from their first ever national championship, to lose their head baseball coach to their biggest rival, that doesn't look good. It wasn't going to be money that was going to be the reason why Schlossnagle ended up in Austin. It was more than that. It was that relationship with CDC, and I think absolutely that was the determining factor, and the opportunities in Austin over College Station play a factor. Money was not it at all in my eyes, and again, you're that close. You're on the precipice of being the best in the entire country this year. To pack up and say this isn't where I want to be long term, I think that speaks more to what any dollar amount they could have thrown at him or potentially match with the Longhorns. It speaks more to that. I do want to bring up this super chat real quick from Longhorn Frenzy. Hook 'em back to you, my friend. I know you've been busy on the interwebs over on Twitter as well. Thank you for your service as well. You've been a pleasure to follow over the years, and thank you again for the super chat. Let me tip my cap to a legend in the Texas Twitter world right there.
Speaking of content, can I say one other thing, guys? I was told in a phone call before we got on this from someone again, the same person who told me, a backstory, and I'll tell our audience this, and now that I can. But I was told middle of the season, I did some checking. I remember when UT lost to UT Rio Grande Valley in baseball, and it was a horrible loss. The season was trending terribly. They had never lost to that program in 40 years, and they had like 11 hit batters and 10 walks or whatever the game was. That's when I reached out to one of my best people on this and said, are you hearing anything on Pierce, the future, whatnot? And he said, I don't know, let me check. And then he said, call me back. So I called him back, and he said he was told like on 2 occasions, Chris Del Conte drove to College Station in his wife's car and stayed at Schloss's house during the season as friends. They're like good friends. Let's also remember that they're buddies, right? They're tight, but the appearance of, we don't want anybody to see this, but stayed there. And that's when I started to think, well, all right, something's up here. And that culminates with today. Same person in a phone call just before this told me that A&M is going to try to pivot to Oklahoma's Skip Johnson as possibly their leading target, who was just playing for the national championship a couple of years ago at Oklahoma. And he would fit in, I'll just say, he would fit in great in College Station. He fits that entire profile, and he coaches pitching. Texas knows Skip very well. So keep an eye on that. Think about expecting your biggest rivals. You hire, him, and if A&M pivots and targets Skip Johnson, that is something to keep your eye on.
Hey, CJ, let's get your take on this one. Kendall Rogers, a guy that I've known for 25, 30 years now with D1 baseball. He says, Scoop, Aggie baseball associate head coach and recruiting coordinator Nolan Kane is expected to join the Texas baseball staff. D1 baseball has learned Kane was an excellent recruiter for the Aggies and will not be a head coaching candidate in College Station. CJ, what's your knowledge of Kane? Is he one of the rainmakers in recruiting for Jim Schlossnagle?
Yeah, definitely. When you look at this roster that A&M was able to construct this past season, whether it be Keaton, Kent, obviously Braden Montgomery, Jason Laviolette, a lot of these guys, Texas A&M had to pry away from other programs or win over in the portal, and that's where Nolan Kane comes in as well. Of course, he's a big part of the developmental factor in the world of baseball for Texas A&M as well, as is Jim Schlossnagle. And when you look at it this past season, Bobby, Texas A&M sat with the 4th best team ERA in the entire country at 3.86. That's remarkable. Texas wasn't even remotely close to that number, that digit there, about almost a point and a half higher than 3.86. So This is huge for the Texas staff that is built. Of course, there's a couple names, and I think a lot of folks are wondering about Max Weiner. I'm not sure right now. I've yet to hear anything confirming one way or the other. He's obviously the pitching guru there in College Station at the time. But this is a very big addition when it comes to getting work done out of the portal and, of course, help maintaining those guys on an upward trajectory once they get into the developmental phase of their game. Big addition to the Texas staff for Jim Schlossnagle.
All right. Hey, we have an official statement out now from the Aggie Athletic Department. Matt, if our producer, if you could pull that up right now, I just sent it to you. Let me start reading it, and then Matt will get it up on the screen. A statement from Jim Schlossnagle. I would like to thank General Welsh, Trev Alberts, and the 12th man for an incredible experience during my time at Texas A&M. Although I know many will be upset with my decision, I chose to make a change to join a longtime friend to continue my career as a college baseball coach. The run to the national championship game was truly a remarkable one this year. And I will savor the memories and true friendships I have made there for a lifetime. After our baseball team arrived back in College Station earlier today, Jim, and this is from Trev Alberts, after our baseball team arrived back in College Station earlier today, Jim informed me of his desire to leave Texas A&M. While we are certainly disappointed, we are grateful for his contributions in helping our baseball program. So Schlossnagle making that official. He is headed to Austin with a statement there as well. So that news coming in. Hey guys, we also have some other news heading in football right now, Aaron and CJ. Chris Stewart, wide receiver out of Pearland's Shadow Creek High School, has committed to the Longhorns. Stewart, about 6 foot, 175, 180, had 35 catches this year for 10 touchdowns. Now he's a class of 2026 prospect. So let's be clear about that. But he averaged around 18 yards a reception. He is a guy that has extreme acceleration. You see him here a little bit, and when you press go, he goes. That's what I would say on that one.
Yeah, 100%. You won't see much better, first 5 to 10 yard bursts than you will with Chris Stewart. Of course, plenty of room to continue growing, and that track speed will continue to improve. Jerry Hamilton told us in our little On Texas Football chat, he expects him at some point to be a 10-7 guy in the 100-meter dash. But again, it's that first step for Chris Stewart that really stands out. Also, we've talked about it, and we've done plenty of videos and coverage notes over the 2025 class. Well, Texas now has their quarterback with Dia Bell, who committed just over a week ago for the class of 2026. It didn't take too long for a wide receiver to say, yep, that's who I want to go play with. Of course, these two threw and caught for one another at the June 1st Elite Camp earlier this month. Of course, Chris Stewart was on campus for that, as was Dia Bell, who at that moment, that's when Texas made the decision to go with Dia Bell over Troy Hune and several others on campus. Of course, Hune just committed to Penn State earlier today as well. But really strong class to the class of 2026. Even with the recent decommitment, things were looking very positively for this group right now. And I think it's going to be another special class in the state of Texas across the offensive line and the playmakers out wide. Now Texas has a quarterback and a receiver to get started on.
Guys, I've got news for you. I think that makes 7 plays that we've just watched from Chris Stewart here that have gone for more than 50 yards in his first 9 plays from scrimmage. So just to give you an idea of what Steve Sarkisian's trying to do from a recruiting perspective. I will say this is interesting, right, CJ? Texas gets a wide receiver commitment for the class of 2026 before they even have one for the class of 2025.
No kidding. Isn't that you're sitting here wondering again, the conversation has been how many 5-star wide receivers in 2025 plus whatever else? Well, hey, let's go ahead and skip all of that noise, right? And get that 2026 guy started. Again, I think it's a very good pickup for the Longhorns. It's a great start. He will continue to get faster. And again, that top, burst of speed is exactly what the Longhorns covet whenever you consider their previous history with wide receivers on the 40 acres, as well as who Sarkisian and Chris Jackson have been recruiting over the past few cycles as well. Great start to this class.
All right, we want to get into this new rules change too. That receiver will not be on campus until 2026, but there's a rules been changed in college football that will affect this year, and we're going to get into that here in a moment. Do you want to tell you about On Texas Football's great partner tonight, bringing you the Texas Livestream, Texas electricity ratings for all you guys and folks who tune in around the state of Texas, the deregulated areas, including Dallas and Houston. You understand very well that deregulated electricity and that market is very confusing. Texas Electricity Ratings is a shopping website, lets you compare prices, read customer reviews, find good electricity that fits your needs, you and your family. Also filters out gimmicky plans. They're going to try to trick you, and you don't want to be on that. That's Power to Choose and others. They trick you into expensive bills. So if you're in the market for new electricity in a deregulated area, please shop TexasElectricityRatings.com/OTF. That's /OTF. For all of your electricity needs, and hook them. We appreciate them every Tuesday night. TexasElectricityRatings.com/OTF. All right before we started here tonight, guys, the Ross Dellinger over at Yahoo and Sports Illustrated reported a piece of news as far as rules changes, as far as coaches goes. Bobby, walk us through this new rule.
Well, there's several, actually. It was the NCAA Division I Council, and he did a good job of explaining. Actually just posted the news and notes of that. One of them is that coaches, off-field coaches that were previously not able to coach on the field will now be allowed to coach. So that means effectively, if you had a special assistant that was just for special teams and they weren't allowed to be on the field, well, guess what? Now they are. Okay. You won't be able to have that guy actually recruit like he's an on-field coach and go out to high schools, but he will be able to go around and actually work on the field with players during practice. So that's one of them. Another one extends the dead period in the month of July to the entire month. Another rule apparently will be additional days available to go recruit in the month of January. So one thing that did get struck down, and this was yesterday or the day before, Aaron and CJ, there will be no June or July signing period next year. They've said no to that. So the rule change, primarily the biggest one today, announced that the former 8 or 9 rule assistant, it's out the window now. You can have as many as you want. You just only a certain amount can actually be coaching or can be on the road recruiting as well.
Is that essentially, CJ, that means to me that like a Gary Patterson, while he was here, could have been on the field coaching in practices. Yep. Obviously, gosh, he was the offensive assistant from Wisconsin that was here last year. Those kind of guys, they can now be on the field, actually hands-on coaching, which means that they can't travel and recruit. That's a big deal, CJ.
Yeah, it 100% is. And I actually started laughing while you were reading those notes, Bobby, that change about the extended days in January for these coaches to be on the road. These poor coaches, man, they just don't ever get that chance to kick their feet up except for that month of July. But, hey, this is what you sign up for when you're a college coach. But this is absolutely massive. And, we've seen it over Nick Saban's tenure at Alabama. Get as many guys in the boat as you can, whether it be analysts, special assistants to the head coach, anybody that's in between jobs or just looking to keep their feet wet in the world of college football. Bring them in and see what we can, get out of them. Sarkisian's kind of implemented his own, kind of style of coaching in that way as well. We saw it with Gary Patterson. We saw it with Joe DeCamillis, a couple other additions over the past year as well. This is what helps you continue to innovate your coaching game, is bringing in new ideas, listening to other coaches who have been around and done that at other places, and just to have an idea of that in and out. Paul Christ, another. Now that you'll have these guys get hands-on with the team in practices, in fall camp, in spring football, it will help development tremendously. Now instead of just Kyle Flood and maybe an assistant helping 18 offensive linemen, you could have up to 3, 4, 5 analysts right there getting hands-on, moving things along in their development. It's big time, and I'm excited to see what comes of that for Steve Sarkisian, if there's future moves down the road, or if, hey, now that this is available, let me go see who's on the market right now and wants to join the University of Texas.
All right, that's big stuff right there, happening in real time. Yeah, the month of July will be dead. That means I don't know, how do you guys see that shaping up for Texas recruiting? You try to, get the guys in the boat before July in future years, or wait till August comes back, or
so they can still have contact with the recruits. The recruits can't come on campus.
Okay.
So no unofficial visits. Currently, that's the case. And a bunch of players will be committing over the next week to 14, 15 days. I mean, I think all the way out, I think until July 11th right now, we know of players that are going to be committing. And you'll even have some that go on beyond that, obviously, as well. But what happens at the end of July, Texas typically has had a pool party for primarily juniors, high school juniors to come to, not high school seniors to be. That, it looks like, will actually have to be shelved, not this year, but next year. So Texas will have that this coming year. Hey, I got a couple other questions coming in now, guys. Some good stuff here from different fans. Freelance Society, has NIL made illegal recruiting easier or harder to do? My guess is that bribes, I guess, and secret payments will be easier to cover up or hide. Well, here's the reality. It's pay for play right now. It hasn't made it easier. It's made it common right now.
More expensive.
It's made it expensive is what it's made. And that we talked about this long ago. A fair market favors someone like the University of Texas. When everybody's doing something and they're on the same page, it favors a heavyweight like Texas. And that's what's happening right now. And so it's actually illegal recruiting what they think about illegal recruiting right now is like Miami trying to get Brandon Brown to visit unofficially during the month of July during the dead period. That's illegal now. Doing a NIL deal with Brandon Brown is not illegal now. And so there are these soft penalties that are illegal. So the NIL hasn't actually made that possible. The reality of it is NIL is not necessarily NIL the way you would think. It's not about being on the cover of the EA sports game. It's about, we need a quarterback and, you spent 2 years as a starter somewhere else, come over here. That's what NIL's devolved into.
Hey, Bobby, Aaron, I want to bring this comment up real quick from the newest Texas 2026 commit. That's Chris Stewart. In the chat telling everybody that Texas is getting a dog right now. Of course, we just went through the film, Bobby, and I don't know how high that number count went, but the number of 50-yard receptions and touchdowns that we saw on that tape as a sophomore, pretty special stuff. So, Chris, congratulations, and hook 'em, brother.
Yeah, hook 'em, Chris. Congratulations, buddy.
Yep, speed. All gas, no brakes at Texas right now. And yeah, so there's some football in there. I want to get to this story too, coming up about the EA sports game and toughest places to play that CJ has been tweeting about all day today. But obviously, you're just tuning in. We're talking about Jim Schlossnagle coming in. He's going to be the new head baseball coach at Texas. Guys, I anticipate a press conference tomorrow. Now that we've seen the statement from Trev Alberts and from Schloss down at A&M, that I'm assuming there'll be some type of introduction tomorrow. And I took note that something that we've talked about a lot on my radio show and in past conversations, the fact that he put, I'm going to work for a good friend. I was told from the very beginning of this process, relationships matter. And that's very clear that working for CDC was important to him. And that was something he really wanted to, hitch his wagon to, big picture, and be at Texas. I think we could see a press conference as soon as tomorrow down at the 40 acres. That would be my guess. And that's where we'll get verification, CJ, on Max Weiner, the pitching coach. I've been told that he's coming. I was also told today that in the wake of this, that Troy Tulowitzki, who a lot of fans are huge fans of, and why not, that he will be remaining with the program. Last year, he was the Texas baseball director of player development. I don't know if that's going to maintain his role. That'll be Coach Schloss's decision. But, Troy Tulowitzki could go coach college baseball somewhere, even Long Beach State, his alma mater, where he was a tremendous player. But I've been told that his family loves it here. His wife and kids go to school here. They love Austin. She's got a thriving business that she started here. So he wants to be around college baseball. So he's going to be here at Texas, I believe, which will be great. And that's to see what Kendall Rogers put out about Nolan Kane, the recruiting coordinator, Max Weiner, who did a great job with the pitching staff this year. You mentioned the numbers, CJ. What Schloss does on building culture, identifying talent, and strategizing a game and a series to keep Tulowitzki around. It's exactly what you want if you're Texas baseball moving into the SEC. So all good news on that front. You guys agree there'll be a potential introduction tomorrow?
It sounds like, because the Aggies just said goodbye.
Yeah.
Right. So, hey, CJ, are you going to be in town tomorrow, or are you heading to the Manning Passing Academy? I know you're headed out this week that way to go see Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning throw at the Manning Passing Academy. Are you going to be available tomorrow, or do we need to send one of our interns, our intern John Burrows, over there?
We might be having to send John, Bobby. I'll be getting up bright and early tomorrow morning. I'll have a stop in Houston that I think a lot of Texas fans should be very excited about in terms of what's going on in the world of 2025 recruiting as well. And then headed on over to Thibodaux, Louisiana. Of course, Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning will be in attendance. A number of other big-time prospects, quarterback kids in the world of college football, Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart. A lot of players on Texas's schedule for the next year or two. I'm excited to get out there. First time going to go see the Manning Passing Academy, and I'm excited for it.
Yep. I could run over there for you, Bobby, if you need me to. Let me know. Whatever you need. Whatever you need, my friend. I'll be over there. It's 10 minutes from the radio station, and I can be there tomorrow. Bobby, will Texas add any more guys to the staff with the rule change? You mentioned that before we started, that why wouldn't you go out and bring someone who could be on the field that's a brilliant special teams mind or any position?
Yeah, and Aaron, I don't know if you saw this report yesterday, but I reported that Texas actually hired a guy last week, I believe, but it hasn't been announced officially. His name is Bill Reese. He's the father of Tommy Reese, the former Notre Dame and Alabama offensive coordinator. Bill was a 15-year recruiting coordinator at UCLA under Dick Vermeil, then went and spent 20 years in personnel offices across 5 different teams in the NFL. He was director of player personnel, director of scouting in a different place. I think he's going to take the role of director of scouting. So Sark has actually already done a little bit of that in the back end, but this actually is on the field type experience. And I don't know what he's thinking. This is something that just got approved today. I don't know that anybody is full on ready to react to that other than just putting existing guys on. That also could change. What is that going to look like from a staff structure expense standpoint, right? You could have theoretically guys that make more doing that than they do as an assistant coach in high school. Maybe hire that. I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes, but very interesting news there, in my opinion. Good question. Yeah.
No question. All right, CJ, I don't know if Matt has this graphic about EA Sports, and they put out, they're dripping out information for the new video game that will be out next month. And this was, they put out today, toughest places to play, toughest stadiums to play in, right? And I don't know if we have the graphic, but was A&M number one? Kyle Field was the number one toughest place to play in college football?
There's their number one ranking they've been looking for. It's not coming in baseball anytime soon, but they got it in the EA Sports video game, College Football 25, toughest places to play. I got into a little bit of a spat with some Texas fans on Twitter about this. I won't call it a spat. I'll call it a nice, mature back and forth. Of course, I didn't see too much of a disagreement, and I understand where Texas fans are coming from. Other fans of the SEC, right? A&M at home since they've joined the SEC conference is only 24-20 at home at Kyle Field since joining the conference. That's not great. That's not what you want. That's not home field advantage. I do, however, believe when that place is rocking upwards of 110,000 fans, it's a very intimidating environment. Does that pay off on the field? Perhaps not. And I understand that there's other environments that are a little bit more, in hostile, I'd say. You can talk about night games at LSU specifically. I think under the lights at Penn State's a big one as well. I conceded my argument. I understand. Tough to play normally means that teams win at home. When you look at the records of most of these other programs when they play at home, it's a little bit different than 24-20 over the last 12 years. So hand up. was wrong. I'm mature. I'm man enough to admit that at times. Tonight is one of them. So if you were a part of that on the Twitterverse earlier this afternoon, you got me. All right. The record of me and Twitter debates probably goes from like 3,332 and 2 to 300,000, whatever. I have 3 losses now on Twitter. So here we go.
Yeah.
Dude,
let me hear it,
it's
Bobby.
not the toughest place to play if the record in the SEC is 24-20, and you had a Heisman.
I get it now.
I mean, come on, don't give in on that.
Well, here are the actual.
Here's the issue. It can be a tough place to play. It can be. It is not always. That's the difference.
Well, I would say this. Here it is. Since 2020, best college football home records. Georgia's 22-0, which talent helps, right? The crowds are good. Talent's better. Alabama's 25-1. The one loss came to Texas last year. Oregon's 21-1. Clemson, which I would put up there pretty high at Death Valley, 24-2. Ohio State 22-2. Utah's 20-2. Oklahoma State, Michigan, Oklahoma, NC State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, LSU, and A&M at 20-5 since 2020. So I saw you put your ranking out, CJ. You had LSU one, right? Night game at LSU, I think, might be the most daunting, road game you'll play as far as a crowd. I think that's right. We're the loudest stadium I've ever been in, having been on the sidelines in 2005 for Texas at Ohio State. That was the loudest stadium I've ever been in. But I haven't been in all of them, so I can just report that was very loud. And I also would report what Texas has done with their – and I don't have a problem with Texas being down where they were. I think that'll change over time with the up to 103, 104,000 now. And they're going to start playing more night games in the SEC. It'll get tougher and tougher. I just remember after that Alabama game a couple of years ago, Will Anderson and those guys said that was the loudest place they ever played in. Remember when Texas lost the game by a point? They said that was the toughest place they ever played. So there's CJ right there. If I was in charge of the top 10 toughest places to play, Tiger State.
I saw Matthew scrolling behind the scenes, and I was about to log out because I know Bobby's about to give it to me here. But hey, listen, when it comes down to it, this is how I look at it. Night games against a marquee big-time opponent, where's the place I'd least want to play at? I think that it's very high in the conversation. Does that equate to a win or a loss on the road at Kyle Field? Probably not, because, again, I don't think those teams have been very formidable over the last few years. But I mean, it's very tough to look at LSU and not say that they're that top team for me. Obviously, Penn State and the whiteout, that's tremendous. But I do think Kyle Field is a great college football environment.
Oh, no, I think it can be. That's the whole point, okay? It can be. It's not always. The teams that should be up there, Tiger Stadium, in my opinion, at LSU, is a tougher place to play on average, regularly, than A&M. That's my point. It is hard. I've went to and seen a team play at Penn State at Texas. That is a more difficult stadium than Kyle Field, in my opinion. Okay? Yeah. And I'm not trying to, the point being A&M, when they lose, there's 70,000 people in the stand.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at here, when they go play Sam Houston State or Prairie View A&M, how many people are in the stands? It doesn't matter who Penn State is playing. There's 100,000 plus. That's why in a singular game, okay, maybe. I think that's debatable. That's why, Aaron's like, hey, the best one I've ever heard is Ohio Stadium, right?
And that's why I judged it basically off of, if all things are equal, you're playing under the lights, you're playing a marquee opponent, where does everything line up? Because you could say, Nick Saban got mad at Alabama students, right? Whenever early in seasons, they'd be blowing teams out by 30 points in the second quarter, and you look up and there's 30,000 fans at Bryant-Denny. So I understand it, but hey, this is why the offseason is the offseason. We get to put up these lists like that. Matt gets to throw me under the bus a little bit, and we get to have some fun on Texas football. But hey, we'll get a little bit of a taste of it this year, right? Texas heads to Kyle Field last week of the season. We'll see just how hostile and intimidating and yada, yada, yada.
It will be.
After the events of today, not that it wasn't going to be hostile. Come on. And I'm already thinking about, we all remember the Chris Beard first game back in Lubbock. What's the baseball series going to be like in College Station the first time? You want to talk about holy, times 10 from that. But as far as I just saw the text, the comment from Lance saying, I've been to 8 of the stadiums, and LSU is the loudest, the toughest. The smell of bourbon is real, especially a night game. I'll say in 05, the Ohio State game, Ohio State plays mostly day games, right? They had to, back then, they had to bring in special lighting for that game. It was such a big game with Texas and Ohio State. The winner was going to probably go play USC for the championship, which actually ended up happening. So that was an environment that was unbelievable. Texas fans still talk about how horrible it was in and out of the stadium because those are some of the worst fans you'll be around. So that's a tough one. And I would say, to your point about Penn State, the other thing I take into account, maybe this is me being too pragmatic. I mean, the trying to get there and how that affects, travel. Penn State's a hard place to get to. I mean, you're a road team. You're trying to get out in the middle of nowhere. So that's part of it as well. But yes, I agree. Tiger, and I would put Clemson pretty high too. I know Dabo Swinney's had a good run there. That place can get rocking. Their Death Valley is pretty good as well. But obviously, talent's going to win out. And but I don't think there's any question that game, November 30th, Texas and Texas A&M in College Station is. I mean, it's the hype of that game, the emotion of that game, especially if A&M has a chance to be spoiler alert and those kind of things. Because Texas having a great regular season. Look out. That's going to be a lot of fun to be a part of.
Ohio State fans, Aaron, the difference between them and other fans that get unruly, even Sooner fans, like Texas OU that's like, spitting back and forth kind of stuff. Ohio State fans were the only ones that got handsy with people I know.
Yeah.
They actually had a little, like they get a little handsy.
Philadelphia Eagles fans of college football.
Yeah. That's what I would say to that. Hey, it's not too much. Tombstone had this one, guys. Wow, we should call up Dwayne Aquina and let him know about the rule change. Dwayne, now the defensive coordinator at Arizona. I don't know that he's going to be changing to Texas for that, but the point is well made, Tombstone, in that this should allow Texas to get going. Guys, a lot of stuff going on. We talked about Jim Schlossnagle. We've talked about the rule change, Aaron. Talked about Chris Stewart, the really quick, fast wide out of
the dog, as he said.
Yep.
Oh, we lose Bobby. We'll get Bobby back in here in a second, but yeah, to his point, busy day. Chris Stewart in the fold. Texas has a new baseball coach. I was proven wrong on a top 10 list. Again, doesn't happen often, but for Texas fans, a day of celebration, I would say, in sense of what's to come down the road. Obviously, plenty of news and notes yet to come on Texas football. I saw a few questions earlier. One regarding Jonah Williams, the 5-star safety out of Galveston Ball High School. Will the addition of Jim Schlossnagle help the Longhorns in his recruitment? The answer, I think, is a little bit. I think it will. Of course, he is a big 2-time sport guy. He is currently in Atlanta right now for a Perfect Game tournament in Georgia. He's a guy that's received some draft interest from the MLB. I think this is absolutely a part of his recruitment where Texas could make up some ground with the addition of Jim Schlossnagle. I saw a few other questions earlier in regards to Josiah Sharma. Jerry Hamilton and I each put up a couple notes earlier this morning. I received some interesting notes from Alabama that they might not be as confident after their last visit with him, that where they potentially thought that they would be coming off the official visits in June. I like where Texas sits. His visit or his decision dates coming at the end of the week. We'll see. Of course, things can change, and Kalen DeBoer is a heck of a recruiter, but right now, I feel like Texas is in a great spot with Josiah Sharma. Nick Townsend's another one that I think Texas made a really splashy, official visit with at the end. And there's Bobby. They said the Aggies got you, Bobby. They cut your internet.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is not it. I forgot to plug in my computer. So it ran out of batteries. I think I was actually going on to what we needed to talk about, which is what's coming up now with recruiting. And I heard y'all talking about that, CJ, just now. So please continue, actually, what you were going with.
Yeah, of course. Plenty of decisions coming up. Of course, Cade Phillips, Aiden Anding. It'll be really interesting once we turn to the month of July. What happens with Smith Orogbo and Marco Jones? One, Orogbo commits on the first, Marco Jones on the second. I was told, hey, there's a lot of noise coming out of Lubbock for Smith Orogbo after his official visit June 7th. That's not necessarily what's been perceived to be the case in both Austin and Norman in visits since then. Of course, Oklahoma added CJ Nixon out of Weatherford, Oklahoma this afternoon, a 6'6" edge rusher athlete to their edge room this afternoon. So we'll see if he is a possible replacement or someone that they can, kind of view as a guy higher on their board in terms of Smith Orogbo. But for this final week, I expect the Longhorns to make a strong push before that July 1st decision date comes.
Very cool. And obviously they're, the silent commitments are out there too, and we'll keep an eye on those. You never know how those will play out. But Chris Stewart, the one from today, obviously the big offensive lineman came in last night, and we talked about that this morning on the radio show. CJ, I know you guys talked about it here on the On Texas Football channel. So that's for the 2025 class, Chris Stewart for 2026. Speaking of portals, and this is a question I'm going to have to look up, but I know that the baseball portal was set to close on July 2nd. Right before the Independence Day, that Monday. I'm assuming, like in football, that the Texas roster and the A&M roster are now open for 30 days, right? And much like we see in football, that they will not be applicable to that window closing. Am I correct on that?
It's my understanding that a couple things that A&M, and correct me if I'm wrong here, CJ, but there's a rule in football where you can't transfer to another SEC school after the spring training. So after the spring semester finishes, baseball, that same rule does not apply. And you get 30 days from when your previous school let a coach go or hired a new coach, Aaron. So there's two rules there, to your point, though, that both would favor Texas in this scenario.
Yeah, I got to think if, because there's also for the Longhorn current roster, now that David Pierce has officially been let go, there's now the draft eligible sophomore rule. So a guy like Jalen Flores, a guy like Jared Thomas, these guys are now eligible for the draft, but it's a shorter draft now. So they got some decisions to make. Heck, those guys might want to play for Jim Schlossnagle. I don't know. That all needs to play out. But I would also anticipate some guys, from that A&M roster with the whole coaching staff essentially is coming to Texas, which it sounds like could happen, including the recruiting coordinator. There could be some movement from the Brazos Valley into Austin through that portal. So we'll keep an eye on that as well, because the Longhorns could use some upgrades, obviously, especially on the mound and in some other spots. So we will see where that goes. That's obviously something to follow. And as we said, you can anticipate a press conference of some kind tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Thursday. But I'm assuming Chris Del Conte wants to get this done pretty quickly and make the announcement. Can I also say that we gave him the flowers earlier, but is there any doubt right now that Chris Del Conte is the best athletic director in college football or in college athletics? If there was any doubt, this just puts it, you win the Director's Cup, you've hired the right football coach. We'll see with Rodney Terry at basketball, but he seems like a guy that's gonna be fine. But man, this is one of those that kind of puts it over the top, that if you're a Longhorn fan, you put your head on the pillow tonight and think, man, we have the best athletic director in college athletics right now at the perfect time as we move into the SEC in 5 days.
He was just Sports Business Journal's athletic director of the year. Your point, 3 out of the last 4 Learfield Cup victories. He hires like a you-know-what. They just lost their golf coach, or actually fired the women's golf coach. So he hires a former national champion as the women's. It's at every sport. You lose an all-time unbelievable coach at Texas, and Eddie Reese in swimming and diving. So what do? You go out and get the guy that just led Arizona State to the national championship in swimming and diving. Give me a break. There's guys that, it's like you're back in the day and you're GE and you're just going and tabbing the best guy in your category to go lead that division. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it does.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, well, and look, they have resources. There's no doubt about it. But as I said off the top, here it is. This is Texas AD Chris Del Conte's last 4 coaching hires have been 3 national champions: Metzger, Bowman, and Ianello. That's golf. That's swimming and diving. A baseball coach who was one day removed from leading the Longhorns in-state rival with a win of the NCAA title, Schlossnagle. So yes, Danny Davis from the States with a good tweet to kind of wrap things up here tonight. Put a bow on it because it's
real quick, Aaron. Matthew, can you go to the Texas baseball Twitter account real quick and pull up their last tweet because they have just made it official, introducing the new head coach of your Texas Longhorns. That is Coach Jim Schlossnagle, and welcome him here to the 40 acres. It's official, Bobby and Aaron. Texas has a new baseball coach.
We've been talking about it for a week on TexasFootball.com, guys. Blake Monroe, to CJ's point, has been talking about this happening potentially for more than a week now. So Longhorns get it done. Chris Del Conte gets it over the finish line. Guy that's less than 24 hours removed from being in Omaha playing for a national championship. Unbelievable.
There's the statement from CDC. I've known Coach Schloss for a long time, and there's now no better coach, program builder, and leader in the game. And the best part is he's an even better person. When we were looking for our next baseball coach, we knew Schloss would be the perfect choice, and we were beyond thrilled that he's joining our Longhorn family. He's the guy that obviously knows our state so well, familiar with our programs, rich and proud history, and everything Texas baseball is all about. He finishes up with, I'm so excited to have Coach Schlossnagle joining our elite group of coaches as we prepare to head into the Southeastern Conference. So all the things we talked about and thought, I mean, the relationship was huge here between the two. Obviously, CDC can explain to Schloss that, man, you're winning there. You can win even bigger here and be in Austin, Texas. Come do it. And again, I give props to CDC for you getting ahead of this thing. He's been working on it for months now. This didn't just happen in the last 24 hours. This has been happening behind the scenes for a while. And, you have an athletic director at Texas who will target their coach and, wait as long as he needs to and then make that coach say no, right? Essentially make him the offer, make him say no. And if he said, no, I want to stay at A&M, that would have been acceptable. But he didn't, rush it. He didn't settle for a coach he didn't want and lands the coach that he wanted in the Texas baseball program. Other part of that, guys, real quick as we wrap up is I think we all understand that there was NIL money that is there that was unwilling to be spent based on who was the head coach previously that is now going to be available, which I don't think you'll have the Texas baseball fan base is generational. I mean, it's 3, 4, 5 generations long that have been going to Dish Falk Field or going to cover Texas, watch Texas baseball. I don't think there's going to be one of them that's anything but thrilled and excited about this hire because this is a guy that can lead that program for 20 years and just continue the excellence that program has been built on for, they had 4 coaches for 105 years. David Pierce lasted 8. Their hope is, this coach lasts 2 decades from here and, takes it to great heights. All right, guys, great stuff as usual. It's been a lot of fun. Texas Electricity Ratings. Find them at texaselectricityratings.com/OTF. If you're in a deregulated area, you need to check out that website. Absolutely. Cut out the confusion, cut through all the nonsense and gimmicks and whatnot. They will lead you to the right electricity for you and your family and the needs that you have for your home or for your business, whatever it might be. texaselectricityratings.com/OTF. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, coffee and football, guys. Bob, CJ, you're traveling to Louisiana, Houston on your way through, so you'll have updates there as well. Looking forward to that here on the On Texas Football channel. Thanks to everybody tuning in. Bobby, CJ, a lot of fun tonight.
Man, historic day for the Longhorns. You mentioned, I think, is this the 7th baseball coach in the university's history? Is that right?
It's the 6th in the last 100. It's the 6th in the last 113 years.
Jeez. Talk about generational. You went to Texas according to your coach,
Yeah.
I was a Garrido guy. Oh, I was a Gustafson. Oh, mine was.
It's pretty amazing if you look at it. You had Dish and Falk for like 27 and 28 years. Gus was 28 years. Augie was 18 or 19 for 2016, and then Pierce was 8. Obviously, the hope is this one is 20 plus. I mean, he's 54 years old, but 75 would be great to have him around. He's a great coach. I think he's going to love Austin, and Texas fans are going to love him. Guys, great stuff, and safe travels, CJ. On the road down I-10. And Bobby, we'll talk again. I'll see you all next Tuesday. Appreciate everybody.
Congrats also to Chris Stewart.